This ends now. Your so-called strategic vision is dismantling everything we've built. I slammed the quarterly report onto the polished table. Jackson's face turned crimson as 24 executives stiffened in their seats. His knuckles whitened around his titanium water bottle. "Miss Thorne, you've been a thorn in my side from day one," he said, voice dangerously low. "This company needed modernization, and all you've done is block progress at every turn." Progress? You call cutting health benefits for 3,000 employees progress? You call sending jobs to factories with zero safety standards innovation? His nostrils flared. I'd hit a nerve. The room seemed to chill as executives avoided my gaze, pretending fascination with their notepads. "Your military background makes you uniquely unfit to understand modern business needs," Jackson said, rising to his full height. "The board chose me because I get results. Perhaps in your world of orders and rigid hierarchies, you never learned how real companies function." The words stung more than I revealed. 6 months of watching this man unravel a 70-year legacy had pushed me beyond my limit. Those real business tactics include the $3.44 million you've set aside for executive retreats, while canceling retirement contributions. I asked, opening another folder. Jackson's eye twitched. "Where did you get those numbers?" "The same place I found proof of your plan to erase the Harrington name from all products and facilities." His expression twisted into something ugly. "You've accessed confidential files. That's immediate grounds for dismissal." He hit the intercom. "Security to the main boardroom now." 2 uniformed officers arrived within seconds. Standard procedure for removals. I'd watched 3 executives escorted out during Jackson's brief tenure. But something unexpected happened. The officers looked at me, and their faces changed. Both men straightened instantly. "Ma'am." The taller officer snapped a flawless salute. "Admiral Thorne, it's an honor." His partner mirrored him. "Yes, ma'am. Admiral." Silence engulfed the room. Jackson's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "These disruptions cannot continue," he finally stammered. "Remove her immediately." Neither officer moved. "Ma'am," the first said, clearly caught between conflicting orders. I straightened my spine, muscle memory from 30 years of service kicking in. "At ease, gentlemen. I value your respect, but company protocol must be observed." I gathered my papers methodically. "I'll leave voluntarily." As I rose, using my cane for support, the boardroom froze in stunned disbelief. "Though before I go," I added, "I should mention tomorrow's emergency shareholder meeting might interest everyone here." I locked eyes with Jackson, "Especially you." His face drained of color as I limped toward the door, the officers stepping aside with subtle nods of respect. "This is absurd," Jackson sputtered. "What shareholder meeting? By whose authority?" I paused at the threshold. "Mine. If you're still with me through this tense standoff, show your support with a like or subscribe." The story of how I ended up in this corporate battlefield and what happens next intensifies from here. My name is Rita Thorne. For 30 years, I served in the United States Navy, rising through the ranks with dedication and strategic thinking until I earned my Rear Admiral stars. I never imagined trading my uniform for business attire, especially not with my injured leg and the nightmares that lingered from my final classified operation. The manufacturing company where this confrontation occurred was founded by my grandfather, Edwin Harrington, who built it from a modest workshop into an industry leader. His portrait still hung in the lobby. For now, Jackson had planned its removal next month, along with every other trace of our family legacy. When I returned from overseas 3 years ago, my plan was simple: recover from my injuries, adjust to civilian life, and find purpose beyond military service. My cousin Patrick, who had served as CEO for 15 years, suggested I join the board, keep it in the family, he'd said. I agreed on one condition. Nobody would know I was related to Edwin. I wanted to earn respect, not inherit it. For 2 years, I served quietly, learning the business while Patrick upheld the company values. Then came his diagnosis: pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Within months, he was gone. The board, pressured by activist investors demanding higher returns, hired Jackson Webb, a darling of the business press, known for ruthless restructuring of underperforming companies. On his first day, he announced his vision: streamline operations, maximize shareholder value, and drag this company into the modern era. Translation: slash costs, pump stock price, cash out. I limped too. My office after the boardroom confrontation, my hand trembling slightly as I closed the door. The pain in my leg always flared under stress. The titanium pins in my femur seemed to burn whenever I pushed myself too hard. My phone buzzed. A text from Lana in Human Resources. He's closing the Employee Child Care Center, effective immediately. The child care center my grandfather had opened in 1977, believing working parents deserved peace of mind, the center that had cared for over 3 generations of employees' children. I sank into my chair, memories flooding back. The day my grandfather showed me the factory floor when I was 7, how he knew every employee by name, how he'd created the first retirement plan in the industry when competitors offered nothing. Business isn't just about products, he had told me. It's about people. My office phone rang. Trevor from legal. Rita, he's on a rampage. He's demanding access to all board member communication records and threatening termination for anyone in contact with you. He can't do that. He's the CEO. He's doing it. A knock at my door. My assistant, Dana, peeked in, face pale. Miss Thorne, Mr. Webb wants your office cleared by end of day. Security will escort you out at 5. I nodded calmly. Thank you, Dana. After she left, I opened my laptop and sent a single message to 16 key shareholders. Operation Restoration begins tomorrow, 9 a.m. The responses came quickly, all affirmative. I was gathering my personal items when my phone rang again. Unknown number. Admiral Thorne. A voice I hadn't heard in years. This is Rita. Commander Ellis. Ma'am, I've been stationed at Naval Intelligence since we last served together. Something urgent has come up regarding Jackson Webb. His financial ties are concerning. My heartbeat quickened. What kind of concerns? The kind that involve national security. I can't say more over an unsecured line. Where can we meet? The usual place. 1 hour. The line went dead. The usual place. Our code for the memorial park where we'd held a service for our fallen team members. As I reached for my cane, the office door burst open. Jackson stood there, flanked by 2 different security guards. You've turned my security team against me, he snarled. I did nothing of the sort. Don't play innocent. I know who you are now. You think your military record intimidates me? You think being Edwin's granddaughter gives you special rights? So, he had discovered my family connection sooner than expected. My rights come from owning 12% of this company's shares, I replied evenly, and from the voting agreements I've established with other major shareholders. His confidence wavered visibly. You're bluffing. Tomorrow's meeting will clarify that. Jackson stepped closer, lowering his voice. Let me make something perfectly clear. I've dealt with people like you before. Sentimentalists, traditionalists, always standing in the way of necessary change. By this time tomorrow, you'll not only be off this board, you'll never work in any industry again. One of the guards shifted uneasily. Is that a threat, Mr. Webb? It's a promise. I know people, powerful people, he added. I stood, ignoring the searing pain in my leg. So do I. We stood eye to eye, neither blinking. You have 30 minutes to vacate, he finally said, turning to leave. Jackson, I called after him. My grandfather had a saying, "Never start a war unless you know exactly who you're fighting." He paused briefly, then continued walking. I had 30 minutes to gather what I needed before meeting Commander Ellis. 30 minutes before I'd learn exactly what national security concerns tied to the man dismantling my family's legacy. And less than 24 hours to prepare for the most important battle of my civilian life. What I didn't know then was that Jackson Webb carried even darker secrets than financial misconduct, secrets that would shake our company to its core, secrets some people would kill to keep buried. I left the building with my head held high, aware of curious eyes following my exit. My car, a modest sedan I'd chosen for trunk space rather than prestige, waited in the parking garage. As I drove toward the memorial park, my thoughts raced through contingency plans. Commander Ellis was already there when I arrived, standing beside the bronze statue of a sailor. His military bearing remained sharp despite civilian clothes. At 45, his hair showed more salt than pepper, and fresh lines marked his face. "Admiral," he said, the formality a habit neither of us could break. "Rita," I corrected, gripping his extended hand. "I've been Rita for 3 years now." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Old habits? Thank you for coming on short notice." We walked to a bench overlooking the harbor, far from other visitors, a security measure I recognized from our operational days. "Jackson Webb." He began without hesitation. "He's been on our radar for 16 months. Mr. Webb," the taller one announced, "the shareholder representatives have arrived for the 7:30 meeting. They're insisting on immediate access as per corporate bylaws." "That's impossible," Jackson snapped. "The meeting isn't for 20 minutes, and we're in closed session." "Actually," I said, entering through the maintenance door, "the bylaws state shareholders may observe any board meeting except those involving proprietary technology. Since you're discussing an acquisition, they have every right to be present." Jackson's face twisted with rage and disbelief. "How did you—" He recovered quickly. "This is a private session. Security, remove her." Neither officer moved. "That won't be necessary," came a new voice. Director Chen entered, flanked by 2 agents in dark suits. "Jackson Webb, I'm serving you with a federal warrant regarding violations of the Export Control Act and suspicion of espionage." The room erupted into chaos. Grace and Anthony stood trying to leave, only to find additional agents blocking the exits. "This is outrageous," Jackson sputtered. "These accusations are completely unfounded." "Are they?" I stepped to the table, placing Imani's documents beside Jackson's presentation materials. "These records show identical patterns at 3 separate defense contractors. In each case, you enacted the same security downgrades, followed by acquisition by entities linked to foreign intelligence. Corporate restructuring follows predictable patterns," he countered. "Similar problems demand similar solutions, including solutions that compromise national security." I pressed a button on the conference console, and Yasmin's voice filled the room as financial transfers appeared on screen. The displays now showed detailed transaction records, payments from foreign entities to shell companies connected to Jackson, Grace, and Anthony. "This is fabricated," Grace protested weakly. "The Justice Department disagrees," Chen replied, "as do banking authorities in 3 countries who've been tracking these transactions." Jackson's eyes flicked around the room, calculating odds, searching for exits. I recognized the look. I'd seen it in cornered operatives during my military career. "Rita," he said, his voice suddenly calm, conciliatory. "Surely we can discuss this rationally. There are elements of these transactions you don't understand. National security implications beyond simple corporate governance." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "You were sent to dismantle my grandfather's company from the inside, to access our proprietary technology and cripple our defense capabilities. What I don't understand is why." Jackson laughed, a hollow sound. "You really don't see it, do you? Your grandfather built more than a manufacturing firm. He created a defensive technological framework that protected American interests for decades. Breaking that framework creates vulnerabilities across the entire defense sector. And who benefits from those vulnerabilities? His smile was cold. Everyone waiting for America's industrial advantage to weaken. "I've heard enough," Chen interjected. "Mr. Webb, please stand." As agents moved to detain him, Jackson pressed something in his pocket. Alarms screamed throughout the building. "Fire evacuation protocol," he announced calmly. "In approximately 60 seconds, all electronic security systems will reset. All doors will unlock. Standard safety procedure." He'd planned this contingency, engineered chaos to mask an escape. "Yasmin," I said urgently into my phone. "Override fire protocols. Security lockdown." "Working on it," she replied, strained. "Someone's fighting me in the system." Jackson used the confusion to bolt toward the private exit. I moved to intercept, my damaged leg flaring with pain. We collided at the threshold, his momentum driving us into the corridor. "You destroyed my career," I hissed, gripping his arm. "You caused the deaths of my team." His eyes widened in genuine surprise. "Your career? You think this was personal?" He laughed. "Admiral, you were simply an obstacle to removing your grandfather's safeguards. An unfortunate casualty in a broader strategy." With a sharp twist, he broke free, slamming me into the wall. Pain tore through my leg as I fell. Jackson paused, looking down at me with something close to pity. "Your grandfather understood the global chessboard. It's a shame his granddaughter never developed the same strategic vision." He turned to run and stopped short. Darius from accounting, Lana from HR, Marco from manufacturing, Trevor from legal. Dozens of employees filled the corridor, forming an impenetrable wall. "These people," I said, forcing myself upright, "are my grandfather's legacy. Not the buildings, not the technology, the community he built." Jackson backed away, only to find Chen and her agents sealing off his last escape. "Jackson Webb," Chen announced formally, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, industrial espionage, and violations of the Export Control Act." As agents led him away, the building's intercom system came to life. Yasmin had regained control. Throughout the facility, employees heard my voice. "This is Rita Thorne. As of this moment, by authority of the board of directors and majority shareholders, I am assuming the position of interim CEO. The acquisition has been terminated. All employee terminations are suspended pending review. We are reclaiming our company's future together." 3 hours later, as federal agents continued gathering evidence, I sat in what had once been Jackson's office, what had originally been my grandfather's office. The portrait I had insisted remain hung on the wall, his kind eyes seeming to approve. Director Chen entered without knocking. "Cleanup is proceeding well. Webb is cooperating, hoping for leniency." "Will he get it?" "That depends on how much he reveals about his handlers." She placed a flash drive on the desk. "As promised, information about your final mission, the intelligence failure that cost your team their lives." I stared at the small device. Was it connected to all this? "Read it and decide for yourself." She moved toward the door, then paused. "By the way, we're recommending your company for a classified defense initiative. The country still needs your grandfather's innovations, and apparently his granddaughter's leadership." After she left, I stood at the window overlooking the manufacturing floor. Workers moved with renewed purpose, the news of Jackson's arrest and my appointment spreading rapidly. Walter had already removed the signs announcing the company's rebranding. The Harrington name would remain. I thought of my grandfather's words from long ago. Business isn't just about products, it's about people. I pressed the intercom. "This is Rita. I'd like all department heads in the main conference room in 30 minutes. We have a company to rebuild." As I prepared for the meeting, I glanced again at my grandfather's portrait. We did it, I whispered. We protected your legacy. And somewhere, I imagined he was smiling. If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories of people standing up for what's right. Let me know in the comments what you thought about Rita's journey from military leader to corporate savior. What would you have done in her position? Your support means everything as we continue sharing stories that matter. I rubbed my throbbing leg, a habit whenever stress intensified the pain. We have 12 hours to stop the same thing from happening to my grandfather's company. My phone buzzed. Trevor from legal. Webb called an emergency executive session for 7 a.m., preempting your shareholder meeting. Jackson was moving faster than expected. A classic tactical maneuver, strike before your opponent is fully prepared. He was trying to consolidate power before the shareholders assembled, I explained to Imani. We need to accelerate. I called Darius in accounting, waking him from sleep. Jackson's moving up his timeline. We need the financial records now. I've got them. But there's a problem, he replied, voice tight. Someone accessed my secure drive an hour ago. They may know what we have. Get somewhere safe. Send everything to the backup address. Next, I contacted Leon. His phone went straight to voicemail. Then Lana. No answer. Marco picked up on the fourth ring, whispering urgently. 2 men came to my house asking questions. My wife told them I was out of town. Are you safe right now? Using my hunting cabin phone. Stay there. I'll contact you through the secure channel. One by one, I realized Jackson had moved against my entire network. Some had gone dark, following our emergency protocols. Others weren't responding at all. He's thorough, Imani said grimly, just like at Sentinel. But predictable, I countered. He's following the same playbook. That gives us an edge. My military training took over as I shaped our response. Jackson expected me to defend. Instead, we would strike. He expected me to shield my network. Instead, I would activate my reserve forces. People he didn't know were connected to me. I called Yasmin, our cybersecurity expert. Time for Plan Omega. Already initiated, she said. Remote archives activated. Dead man switches set. If anything happens to any of us, everything goes public automatically. Next, I contacted Ellis. Jackson's moving. He's identified some of my team. We suspected he might. That's why I withheld certain information. Ellis paused. There's someone you need to meet. Now. Harbor Warehouse. 20 minutes. The old warehouse, once a naval supply depot during World War II, loomed as a hulking shadow against the night sky. When we arrived, Ellis waited by a side entrance with a slim woman whose silver-streaked hair caught the light. Rita, this is Director Chen from the Justice Department, Special Investigations. We shook hands, her grip firm and assessing. Admiral Thorne, your reputation precedes you. Former Admiral, I corrected. What's your interest in Jackson Webb? He's one piece of a larger puzzle. We've traced 5 defense technology leaks to companies he restructured. But Webb is an instrument, not the architect. You know who's behind him? We have strong suspicions. What we lack is definitive proof linking Webb to foreign intelligence assets. That's where I come in, I said. Precisely. Your shareholder meeting is the perfect opportunity. Webb believes he's outmaneuvered you. That makes him vulnerable. My priority is saving my company, I stated flatly. Our objectives align, Chen said. Stop Webb, protect national security, save your company. In that order. We spent the next hour refining the plan. Chen provided additional intelligence on Webb's connections, including board members potentially compromised. Grace and Anthony, I said, recognizing 2 directors who had consistently backed Jackson's most aggressive cuts. They always vote as a bloc with him. Both have received substantial payments through the same shell company structure Webb uses, Chen confirmed. By 3 a.m., The plan was set. Ellis would coordinate with trusted security personnel. Chen would discreetly position federal agents around the building. Yasmin would monitor communications and be ready to lock down digital systems. I would confront Jackson directly, the threat he expected, while the real operation unfolded behind the scenes. At 4 a.m., I returned to my apartment to shower and change. My dress uniform hung untouched in the closet for 3 years. For a moment, I considered wearing it, a symbolic display of authority. Instead, I chose a simple charcoal suit. This wasn't about my military career. It was about my grandfather's legacy. As I fastened the small gold pin he'd given me on my graduation day, a miniature version of the company logo, my phone rang. Unknown number. Rita Thorne, Admiral. The voice was distorted, deliberately electronically masked. I believe we have mutual interests regarding Jackson Webb. Who is this? Someone who knows Webb's real purpose at Harrington Manufacturing. Someone who knows what happened to your team 3 years ago wasn't an accident. My hand froze on the pin. Explain the intelligence failure. That led to your team's ambush. It came through channels Webb's associates controlled. Your retirement was convenient for certain interests. Cold fury rose inside me. You're claiming my injury and the deaths of my team were engineered to remove me from service. I'm saying patterns exist for those willing to see them. Webb specializes in removing obstacles, sometimes corporate ones, sometimes military ones. You have proof. Bring down Webb today and proof will find its way to you. Fail, and certain documents regarding your final mission disappear forever. The line went dead. I stood motionless, my mind racing through the implications. If true, this connected everything. My military career, my grandfather's company, Jackson's appointment as CEO. Not coincidence, but calculation. I arrived at company headquarters at 6:15 a.m., earlier than expected. The lobby was quiet except for Beth at reception, whose surprise quickly turned to relief. Miss Thorne, they said you'd been terminated. Reports of my professional death are greatly exaggerated, I replied with a wink. Beth leaned forward conspiratorially. The executive session starts in 45 minutes. Mr. Webb has security posted at the boardroom doors. Any idea who's attending? The usual allies, Grace, Anthony, plus 3 directors who arrived from the airport an hour ago and went straight to his office. Reinforcements. Jackson was consolidating support. Thank you, Beth. I headed for the elevator, then stopped. One more thing. Is Walter still handling building maintenance? Yes. 35 years next month. If Jackson gets his way, Walter's last day is Friday. Walter, who taught me to fish when I was 10, who attended my commissioning ceremony, who knew every inch of this building. I found him in the maintenance room, surprised but genuinely glad to see me. Little Rita, they said you were gone for good. Not quite yet. I explained what I needed. His weathered face turned serious as he nodded. Those access tunnels haven't been used in decades. Your grandfather had them built during the Cold War. Bomb shelter. Paranoia, he called it. But they'll get you where you need to go. At 6:55 a.m., while Jackson and his allies gathered in the boardroom, I was beneath it, following Walter through narrow utility corridors. We emerged through a maintenance panel into a small observation room connected to the boardroom by a one-way glass window, my grandfather's private viewing area. He liked to watch discussions without influencing them, Walter explained. Said he learned more about people when they didn't know he was listening. Through the glass, I watched Jackson gesture emphatically toward 7 board members, his voice carrying clearly thanks to the room's audio system. Undeniable evidence that Rita Thorne has accessed confidential materials with intent to damage this company. She's colluding with outside interests to block our acquisition by Meridian Global. This acquisition was never approved by the full board, objected Director Patel, one of the few who consistently questioned Jackson's methods. The preliminary agreement is standard procedure, Jackson countered smoothly. The terms are extremely favorable to shareholders. And what happens to our defense contracts under foreign ownership? Patel pressed. Properly structured subsidiaries will maintain all necessary clearances, Grace interjected. The legal framework is solid. I checked my watch. 7:05 a.m., 25 minutes until the shareholder meeting. I messaged Ellis. In position. Executive session in progress. Web pushing acquisition approval. His reply came immediately. Federal team ready. Warrant secured. I contacted Yasmin. Next. Status. Systems prepared. Financial records transferred to a secure server. Audio feeds live. Recording everything. The final piece engaged. I took a deep breath and messaged Walter. Now. Seconds later, the boardroom lights flickered. The projector Jackson was using went dark. Emergency lighting snapped on, part of Walter's controlled power diversion. Just a system glitch, Jackson assured the room, visibly irritated. Continuing with the vote, the boardroom doors opened. Two security officers stepped in, the same ones who had saluted me the day before. His last 3 business turnarounds involved defense contractors. My skin prickled. Go on. In each case, he imposed aggressive cost-cutting, inflated short-term profits, then arranged acquisitions by overseas interests. Ellis handed me a thumb drive. Companies with known links to foreign intelligence agencies. You're saying he's a deliberate actor, not just a ruthless executive. The pattern is too consistent. Every company he modernized held sensitive technologies. After acquisition, those technologies surfaced in foreign weapons systems. I thought of our aerospace division, the specialized components we produced for military aircraft. Our defense contracts are small compared to consumer goods. Small, but critical. Your proprietary aluminum alloy process is classified. It's used in next-generation aircraft frames. The realization hit like physical pain, and Jackson's first move was replacing our head of aerospace with his own appointment. Ellis nodded grimly. A man with 3 offshore accounts receiving regular transfers from a shell corporation in Singapore. My grandfather had developed that alloy process during the Cold War, refusing to sell it, insisting it remain American-made for American aircraft. We've been building a case, Ellis continued, but Webb is careful. The FBI needs more time. And meanwhile, he's dismantling our security protocols and calling it streamlining. I finished. Exactly. Last week, he lowered clearance requirements for manufacturing floor supervisors. My stomach tightened. That's not in any report I've seen. It wouldn't be. He's been keeping 2 sets of records, official ones for the board and real operational changes. That's why I contacted you. We need someone on the inside who understands the national security implications. Tomorrow's shareholder meeting may be your only chance to stop him before the damage becomes irreversible. We spent the next hour reviewing the evidence, names, dates, financial transfers, a web of connections that left little doubt about Jackson's true agenda, not just a cost cutter, but something far worse. As Ellis prepared to leave, he hesitated. There's one more thing, Rita. Personal. His expression softened. How are you holding up? Really? The unexpected question caught me off guard. 3 years since the operation that ended my career, and he was the first person from my former life to ask. I manage, I answered honestly. Some days are better than others. The team still talks about you, about what you did that night, rescuing those hostages when the extraction went sideways, and losing half our unit in the process. I finished, the familiar weight of guilt settling over me. No one blames you. The intelligence was faulty. We walked straight into an ambush. The memories surged uninvited. The firefight, the explosion, waking in a field hospital with a shattered leg, and the knowledge that 6 good people weren't coming home. I appreciate the sentiment, I said, my tone making it clear the subject was closed. Ellis respected the boundary. With a final handshake, he left me alone with the weight of two crises, one rooted in my past, the other unfolding in real time. I had 12 hours until the shareholder meeting, 12 hours to prepare for a battle on multiple fronts, saving my grandfather's company and potentially stopping a breach of national security. My phone buzzed with a message from Beth, our elderly receptionist whom Jackson had scheduled for early retirement next month. Someone broke into your office after you left. It says your computer was accessed. So it had begun. Jackson was digging for anything he could use against me. Let him search. My military career had taught me never to leave sensitive information where it could be compromised. I drove to a small diner on the edge of town, one with poor cell reception and no security cameras, the kind of place I'd chosen for meetings during my intelligence days. A young waitress named Penny brought coffee without asking. "You looked like you needed this," she said with a kind smile. "Rough day just getting started," I replied. I opened my laptop, not my company-issued one, but a personal device with military-grade encryption. Time to activate the network I'd been quietly building for months. First, an encrypted message to Darius in accounting, who had documented every questionable financial decision since Jackson's arrival. Then to Lana in HR, who had cataloged the human cost of modernization, the layoffs, benefit cuts, and strategic removal of employees who'd served the company for decades. Next, Marco in manufacturing, who had preserved the original quality control protocols Jackson tried to eliminate. And finally, Leon in legal, who had quietly flagged potential regulatory violations in Jackson's new operating procedures. Each replied within minutes. All were ready. The final piece was Yasmin, a cybersecurity expert I'd served with who now worked in the private sector. Her message was simple. File extraction complete. Evidence secured. For 6 months, I'd watched Jackson carve a destructive path through our company. For 6 months, I'd gathered allies and proof, building toward this moment. Not just for my grandfather's legacy, but now for something far bigger. My phone rang. An unknown number again. Is this Rita Thorne? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Who's asking? My name is Imani Wade. I worked for Sentinel Industries until last year. Sentinel, one of the defense contractors Jackson had restructured before joining our company. How did you get this number? Commander Ellis suggested I reach out. I have information about Jackson Webb that could help you. Information I was too afraid to share until now. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can we meet? We agreed to meet at the diner in 30 minutes. I used the time to review Ellis's files, searching for any mention of Imani Wade. Nothing. Either an oversight or a deliberate omission. The diner door opened and a woman in her mid-30s stepped inside, alert eyes scanning the room before locking onto me. She moved with purpose, sliding into the booth across from me. "Miss Thorne," she said, her voice matching the one from the call. "Call me Rita." She nodded, hands clasped tightly on the table. I was a senior project manager at Sentinel's Specialized Components Division until Jackson Webb arrived. Yes. Bitterness edged her voice. He called it strategic reorganization. Within 6 months, half our team was gone, replaced with people who asked too few questions about security protocols. What happened? Unusual visitors, restricted areas suddenly open to new hires with minimal background checks. When I raised concerns, I was reassigned to customer service. 3 weeks later, my position was eliminated. You have proof? She slid a small package across the table. Access logs, visitor records, security override authorizations, all bearing Jackson's signature. Why come forward now? Her eyes locked. Onto mine. Because yesterday, my former colleague, the one who helped me collect these records, died in a car accident. Single vehicle, no witnesses. A chill ran through me. You think it wasn't an accident? I think nothing involving Jackson Webb happens by accident. The implications settled between us like a tangible weight. This wasn't just corporate misconduct, it was potentially lethal. There's more, Imani continued. 2 days before I was fired, I overheard Jackson on a call. He mentioned Harrington specifically, said something about the old man's legacy being the perfect cover. My grandfather had been dead for 12 years. His name still carried influence in the industry, still symbolized quality and integrity. You think our company was targeted deliberately, not just conveniently? I think Jackson Webb has a specific interest in your family's business, and based on what happened at Sentinel, that makes it dangerous for everyone involved. As she shared more details, a clearer picture formed. Jackson wasn't merely dismantling our company culture, he was systematically stripping away security barriers around our most sensitive technologies. We were nearly finished when the diner door opened again. A man in a dark suit entered, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on our table. Something in his posture, the controlled stillness, the heightened awareness, triggered my operational instincts. "We need to leave," I said quietly. "Back exit. Now." Imani's eyes widened, but she followed without hesitation as I dropped cash on the table and guided us toward the kitchen. "Friend of yours?" she whispered. "Definitely not." The man moved toward our booth as we pushed through the swinging doors, startling the cook. "Sorry," I called, continuing toward the rear exit. "Emergency outside." I hurried Imani to my car, both of us scanning the parking lot for threats. "Who was that?" she asked as we pulled away. "Someone professional. Someone who knew where to find us." I checked the rearview mirror. No obvious tail, which meant our timeline had just accelerated. The shareholder meeting was 12 hours away, but Jackson Webb was already moving against us. The real question was how much he knew about what we knew, and more importantly, what he was willing to do to stop us from exposing it. The night stretched ahead like an operational timeline. Imani and I drove to a small hotel outside city limits, paid cash for a room where we could safely review the documents she'd brought. "These security clearance changes," I said, pointing to a highlighted section, "are identical to what Jackson implemented last month at our facility." "Page 12 shows the timeline at Sentinel," Imani replied. 6 months from protocol changes to full acquisition by Meridian Global. And 3 weeks after acquisition, sensitive technology appears in foreign military exercises.